Do not save what is left after spending. Spend what is left after saving. That is one of the most famous financial quotes ever spoken. Warren Buffett said it. Millions of people have shared it, and almost everyone watching this right now already knows it. But here is the problem nobody wants to admit. That quote assumes something. It assumes there is something left. It assumes that after the rent is paid and the groceries are bought and the car payment clears and the electricity bill hits, there is a pile of money sitting on the table waiting to be divided between spending and saving. For 78% of Americans, that pile does not exist. The table is empty. The paycheck came in and the paycheck went out, and the month ended exactly where it started, at zero. 78%. That is not a fringe statistic from some corner of the economy that doesn't apply to you. That is the majority. That is most of the country. And the part that should really shake you is this. It is not just people earning $30,000 a year. A survey from Lending Club found that over half of people earning more than $100,000 a year still live paycheck to paycheck. 6 figures, and still no gap, still no cushion, still no breathing room between one direct deposit and the next. The problem is not income. If it were income, every raise would fix it. Every promotion would solve it. And it doesn't. You already know that. You have gotten raises before, and somehow the money still disappears by the end of the month. Something else is going on. And that is what this video is about. This video is going to break down exactly why you are stuck and the specific mechanics of how to get unstuck. We are not going to talk about cutting lattes. We are not going to tell you to skip avocado toast. We are going to show you what Buffett would tell you if you sat across from him at his desk in Omaha and said, "I work hard, I earn money, and I have nothing to show for it." He would not tell you to earn more. He would tell you something completely different. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what that is. If this way of breaking down money makes sense to you, subscribe to this channel. This is where we turn Buffett's lessons into something anyone can use. No jargon, no fluff, just the mechanics of how money actually works. Picture your Tuesday morning. Alarm goes off, you get dressed, you drive to work, you spend 8, 9, 10 hours doing what you are paid to do. You drive home, you eat, you pay whatever bill is due, you sleep, and then Wednesday morning looks identical to Tuesday, and Thursday looks identical to Wednesday. Every dollar you earn has already been assigned to something before it even hits your account. Rent takes its share. The car loan takes its share. Insurance, groceries, utilities, phone bill, internet. By the time you subtract everything, there is nothing left to decide with. $0 of discretionary money. $0 of freedom. You are not managing money, you are managing survival. That is the survival trap. Not being broke, being locked into a cycle where every resource you have goes to maintaining your current position instead of improving it. Most financial advice doesn't account for this. It tells you to build an emergency fund, to max out your 401k, to invest early so compound interest can work its magic over decades. All of that is true, and all of it assumes something that is not true for most people. It assumes there is surplus money available, that somewhere in the budget there is a line item called savings that just needs to be prioritized. For people in the survival trap, there is no such line item. There is no hidden pile of cash being wasted on luxuries. There is rent and food and getting to work and keeping the lights on. That is it. The advice is not wrong. It is just built for someone who has already escaped the trap. It does not help the person still inside it. Buffett talks about money as soldiers. Every dollar is a soldier that can be deployed. Put a dollar into an investment, and that soldier works for you 24 hours a day. It earns more soldiers. Those soldiers earn more soldiers. That is how wealth builds, an army that grows itself. But when you are in the survival trap, there are no free soldiers. Every single one of them is already at war. Rent takes a battalion. The car takes a platoon. Insurance, utilities, groceries, each one pulls soldiers away before you even give an order. You are a general with no reserves, no one to send anywhere new. Just enough to hold the line until the next paycheck arrives and the cycle repeats itself. That is not building. That is treading water. And here is what makes the trap so effective. It doesn't need walls or chains. It only needs your schedule. You wake up, you work, you pay, you sleep. The cycle consumes time the way fire consumes oxygen. There is no gap in the day where you sit down and think strategically about your financial future. There is no Sunday afternoon where you calmly review investment options. There is just the next bill, the next paycheck, the next week. The system does not need to steal from you. It just needs to keep you moving fast enough that you never stop to look around. That is the cruelest part. You feel like you are working hard. You are working hard. But the output of that work goes entirely to maintenance. 0% goes to advancement. You are running on a treadmill, and the belt speed matches your pace perfectly. If this is landing for you, if you recognize this cycle, write in the comments right now, "I am building the gap." That sentence matters more than you think. Where does the money actually go? This is the question that haunts everyone in the survival trap. You earn a paycheck that looks like it should be enough. It should cover life and leave something behind, but it never does. So let us open it up. A household earning $75,000 a year, that is above the national median. That should be comfortable. After federal income tax, state tax, Social Security and Medicare, the actual take-home is roughly $56,000. That is $4,667 per month deposited in your bank account. That is the real number, not 75,000, 4,667, already 30% smaller than the number you agreed to when you took the job. Now subtract. The national median rent for a two-bedroom apartment is $1,800 per month. The average car payment in the United States is $726. Car insurance averages about $200. Gas to get to work, $150. The employer share of health insurance for a family costs around $250 a month. Your phone, $100. Internet, $75. Add those up, $3,301. Gone. Before you have eaten a single meal, before you have turned on a light switch, before your children have needed anything at all. $3,301 assigned to keeping the basic machinery of life running. Remaining balance, $1,366, and the month has barely started. Groceries for a family of 4 on the USDA moderate plan, $600 a month. Electricity, water and gas utilities, $300. The average student loan payment in America, $393 per month. Childcare, medications, household supplies, unexpected car repair, school fees, conservatively another $300. That second round of expenses, $1,593. Add it to the first round, $4,894 in total monthly obligations. Monthly income, $4,667. You are $227 in the hole. Every month. And that is before anyone gets sick, before a tire blows out, before Christmas, before anything at all goes wrong. The $75,000 salary is not a $75,000 life. It is a life that costs more than $75,000 to maintain. This is the paycheck illusion. The number on your offer letter, the number your employer told you, the number you tell people when they ask, that number is a fiction. Your real number is what remains after the machine takes its share. And for most households, what remains is zero or negative. The paycheck arrives and it feels like progress. Money in the account, direct deposit notification. But within 72 hours, That money has already scattered to 15 different obligations. The account balance returns to its resting state. Whatever amount is just barely enough to avoid an overdraft fee. The paycheck is not yours. It belongs to the system of obligations you have built around your life. You are just the corridor it passes through. And this is where it compounds against you. Lifestyle creep. It does not announce itself. It does not feel like a mistake while it is happening. You get a raise, $5,000 more per year, $400 extra per month. The apartment that was fine suddenly feels small. The car that worked suddenly feels old. A subscription here. Eating out twice a week instead of once. A gym membership, a streaming service, a slightly more expensive phone plan. Each one is small. Each one is reasonable. And collectively, they consume the entire raise before a single dollar reaches savings. Buffett kept his annual salary at Berkshire Hathaway at $100,000 for decades. The company grew to nearly $1 trillion. His personal spending barely changed. He still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He understood something most people learn too late. Income is not wealth. The gap between income and spending is wealth, and lifestyle creep is the silent killer of the gap. If this is giving you a clearer picture of how money really works, hit the like button. That feedback tells me this kind of breakdown is worth continuing. Something happens to the brain when you live in survival mode. It is not about discipline. It is not about character. It is biology. Sendil Mullainathan, a Harvard economist, ran a study that should be taught in every school in the country. He found that the cognitive load of financial stress, the mental weight of worrying about money, reduces effective IQ by 13 points. Let that register. The person did not get dumber. Nothing changed about their intelligence, their education, their genetics. The only thing that changed was the financial pressure, and under that pressure, the brain loses 13 points of cognitive function, 13 points gone, consumed by a background program running non-stop called How Am I Going to Pay Rent? 13 points is not a rounding error. It is the cognitive equivalent of pulling an all-nighter. It is the difference between solving a problem clearly and staring at it without understanding why your brain won't cooperate. Except a bad night of sleep you recover from. Financial stress does not pause. It does not take weekends off. It resets to full volume on the 1st of every month when rent is due, and resets again on the 15th when the car payment clears. You are not fighting one night of impaired thinking. You are fighting a permanent reduction in your mental capacity that lifts only when the financial pressure lifts. And the financial pressure does not lift, because you are in the survival trap. So the reduced capacity becomes your new normal, and you forget what thinking clearly even felt like. Cortisol, the stress hormone, floods your bloodstream when you are under financial pressure. That is your body's alarm system. It was designed for short bursts. See a predator, flood cortisol, run fast, survive. The problem is that a credit card balance is not a predator. But your body does not know the difference. It responds to the threat of eviction the same way it responds to the threat of a physical attack. Narrow focus, elevated heart rate, shortened time horizon. Cortisol locks you into the present. It makes you hyper-aware of what is directly in front of you and blind to everything else. That is useful if you need to dodge a car. It is catastrophic if you need to think about where to invest $300 over the next 30 years. Now pay attention to this because it connects everything. When cortisol stays elevated for months and years, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that plans, that weighs consequences, that resists impulse, begins to shut down. The amygdala takes over. Fight or flight. Pay rent or lose the apartment. Your brain physically reallocates resources from planning to surviving. The result is a person who is incapable of thinking long-term, not unwilling. Incapable. The hardware is being redirected. Asking someone in survival mode to think about retirement is like asking someone in a house fire to plan a renovation. The system will not allow it. That is why people in survival mode make decisions that look irrational from the outside. The $7 drive-through meal instead of the $2 home-cooked option. The impulse buy after an 18-hour shift. The lottery ticket when the bank account is at $40. These look like bad choices. They are not bad choices. They are exhaustion choices. The brain is flooded with cortisol, starved of planning capacity and screaming for any relief from the pressure. A cheap dopamine hit, fast food, a new shirt, a scratch-off ticket, is the brain's attempt to regulate itself. It is self-medication. Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, said it bluntly. Show me the incentives, and I will show you the outcome. When every incentive in your life points towards surviving the next 72 hours, the outcome is always short-term decision-making. Always. Judging someone in the survival trap for buying a coffee is like judging a drowning person for not swimming in a straight line. If you understand the mechanics but the gap between knowing and doing still feels impossible to close, if you have read the books and watched the videos and the math makes sense but the movement is not happening, check the first pinned comment below this video. It is there for people who are ready to stop studying the machine and start building theirs. There is a hidden cost to survival mode that almost no one talks about. It is not the money you fail to save. It is the money the system charges you for being in that position. Economists have a name for it. The poverty premium. It means that the less money you have, the more everything costs. Not figuratively, literally. The system charges a surcharge on financial struggle, and that surcharge makes the struggle worse, which increases the surcharge, which deepens the struggle. It is a feedback loop, and it is built into the architecture of modern American life so deeply that most people do not even see it. Credit is the first place it shows up. Someone with a credit score of 780 walks into a dealership and gets approved for a car loan at 5% interest. Someone with a 580, which is what happens when you have missed a payment or two because survival mode forced a choice between the electric bill and the credit card minimum. That person gets 18%. Identical car, identical dealer, identical Tuesday afternoon. The difference over 5 years on a $25,000 loan, approximately $8,400. That is not a consequence of buying a more expensive car. It is a tax on your position. You pay more because you have less, and the extra you pay ensures that you continue to have less. That is the drain. Insurance is the second place. If you live in a lower-income zip code, your car insurance costs 30 to 50% more than someone in a wealthier neighborhood. Not because you have more accidents, because the algorithm assigns higher risk to your area code. A study by the Consumer Federation of America found that some drivers in low-income neighborhoods pay twice as much as drivers with identical records in affluent zip codes. You are subsidizing the statistics of your own geography. You did not choose to live there because you like paying more. You live there because it is what you can afford, and the penalty for affording less is paying more. The loop tightens. Banking is the third place, and it might be the most insulting. Overdraft fees. The average American who gets hit with overdraft fees pays about $250 a year in those fees alone. That is $250 charged specifically because your account did not have enough money in it. The bank does not lose money when you overdraft. The transaction still goes through. They fronted you $30 for a gas station purchase and charged you $35 for the privilege. American banks collected over $35 billion in overdraft fees in one recent year. That is not a customer service feature. That is a revenue stream built on the backs of people who are already drowning. Every single one of those $35 billion came from someone who could not afford it. Add it all up. Higher interest on every loan, higher insurance for the same coverage, overdraft penalties for the crime of being broke at the wrong moment, payday loans charging 391% APR, targeting the exact neighborhoods where the survival trap is tightest, and the daily cost. No one itemizes, buying in small quantities because you cannot afford bulk, paying convenient store prices because the nearest grocery store is 3 bus transfers away. Terry Pratchett called it the boots theory. A rich man buys $50 boots that last 10 years. A poor man buys $10 boots that last 1 season. After 10 years, the poor man has spent $100 and still has wet feet. That is the invisible drain. It does not appear on any bill, but it takes more from you than any single expense ever could. Buffett has never published a guide on how to earn more money. Think about that for a second. The most successful investor alive, a man worth over $100 billion, has never said that the key to wealth is earning a higher salary. What he talks about over and over in his annual letters, in his interviews, in his conversations with university students, is one thing: the gap. The distance between what comes in and what goes out. That gap, he says, is the most important number in your financial life. Not your income, not your net worth, not your portfolio balance. The gap. Because income can be enormous and the gap can still be zero, and income can be modest and the gap can still be positive. The gap is where wealth begins. Everything else is noise. Why does the gap matter so much? $50 a month is not going to make anyone wealthy. You know that. Everyone knows that. But $50 a month does something far more important than making you wealthy. It moves you from one category to a completely different one. Zero savings means survival mode. Non-zero savings, even $50, means you have started building. Those are not slightly different positions on the same spectrum. They are 2 entirely different operating systems. At zero, every decision is reactive. At $50, something shifts. A tiny margin of safety appears, a hairline fracture in the wall of the trap. It is not freedom, but it is the first evidence that freedom is possible. And your brain registers that evidence. It changes how you think. It changes what you believe is within reach. The move from zero to not zero is the most psychologically powerful financial move you will ever make. The math starts small, and it is supposed to start small. $50 a month in a basic S&P 500 index fund, the exact investment Buffett recommends for almost everyone, growing at the historical average of roughly 10% per year. After 10 years, $10,300, not life-changing. After 20 years, $38,000, starting to breathe. After 30 years, $113,000, from $50 a month. Not from a 6-figure salary, not from an inheritance, not from a lucky stock pick, from a gap that most people would call too small to matter. Albert Einstein reportedly called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. Buffett turned that wonder into the foundation of one of the largest fortunes in history. He did not start with millions. He started with a paper route. The math works at any scale. It just needs something to compound. But here is the part that matters more than the money. It is what happens inside your head when the number stops being zero. The moment you have $500 in a separate account, money that is not for rent, not for gas, not assigned to any obligation, your brain begins to change. Cortisol drops. The prefrontal cortex re-engages. You start thinking in terms of weeks and months instead of hours and days. You start considering options that survival mode had locked out of your awareness. The account balance is not just a number. It is a signal to your nervous system that you are no longer in immediate danger. The gap does not only change your bank account, it changes your operating system. It upgrades the hardware that makes every other financial decision from that point forward. That $500 is not an investment. It is a software update for your brain. Before the gap can grow, you need to know exactly where every dollar goes. Not approximately, exactly. Buffett has read financial statements every single day for 70 years. He does not guess. He does not estimate. He knows to the penny what every company he owns earns and spends. You need to apply the same discipline to your household, not because budgeting is fun, because awareness creates the gap. Most people who think they have no surplus discover, when they actually track every transaction for 30 days, that they are leaking $200 to $400 a month on things they did not realize they were paying for. A subscription they forgot. An insurance policy that auto-renewed at a higher rate, a bank fee they never noticed, a streaming service they have not opened in 4 months. The gap is not always missing. Sometimes it is hiding. Buffett uses a concept from physics to describe what happens when money starts working: escape velocity. In rocket science, escape velocity is the speed an object needs to reach to break free from Earth's gravitational pull. Below that speed, gravity pulls you back. Above it, you are free. In personal finance, escape velocity is the moment your investments generate enough return to outpace your expenses. Below that threshold, you are still grinding. Above it, money works while you sleep. But nobody reaches escape velocity in one jump. Nobody straps a rocket to their back and breaks free from the survival trap on a Tuesday afternoon. It happens in stages, and the first stage is the hardest one. Not because it requires the most money, but because it requires the most belief. Stage 1, the emergency buffer. $1,000 to $2,000 set aside in a separate account that you do not touch. This is not an investment. It is a psychological weapon. Research from the Pew Charitable Trusts found that households with as little as $250 to $749 in liquid savings were significantly less likely to be evicted, miss a utility payment, or need a payday loan after a financial shock. The buffer does not generate returns. It does not compound. What it does is stop the bleeding. The next time the car breaks down, or the dentist bill lands, or the washing machine dies, the buffer absorbs the hit instead of your credit card. And you avoid the $35 overdraft fee, the $29 late payment fee, and the 24% interest that would have started compounding the moment you swiped. How to build the buffer when every dollar is already spoken for. This is where 90% of financial advice collapses. Just save 10% of your income does not work when there is no 10%. Cut unnecessary expenses does not work when every expense feels necessary. Buffett's approach is different, and it is the only one that works in the survival trap. Automate first, adjust second. The moment your paycheck hits your account, not the end of the month, not when you remember, the literal moment it arrives. An automatic transfer pulls a fixed amount into a separate account, $25, $10, $5. Whatever the number is, the key is that it moves before you see it, before survival mode can claim it, before your brain assigns it to the electricity bill. The automation removes the decision, and removing the decision is everything, because your brain in survival mode will always choose the bill over the savings. Always. Do not fight your brain. Outsmart it. Your mind is going to push back hard on this. It will generate every objection you have ever heard. $25 is nothing. It is not worth the effort. I will start when I make more. I cannot afford to save right now. Every single one of these objections sounds rational, and every single one of them is the survival trap talking. It is the same voice that says cook at home when you have been on your feet for 11 hours and your brain is screaming for relief. The voice is real. The fatigue is real. But the math does not care about fatigue. $25 a month is $300 a year. $300 is the difference between having nothing and having something. In survival mode, something is a revolution. It is the crack in the wall. It is proof that the cycle can be interrupted. Do not wait for the gap to feel comfortable. It never will. Build it while it hurts, and eventually the hurt fades because the gap itself becomes the painkiller. Stage 2, the debt neutralizer. Once the buffer exists, once you have that $1,000 cushion, every extra dollar beyond your minimum obligations goes to the highest interest debt. Not the biggest balance, not the oldest account. The one with the highest interest rate. Here is why. If your credit card charges 24% APR, every dollar you throw at that balance is earning you 24% in avoided interest. That is a guaranteed return. Buffett has said repeatedly that he would jump at a guaranteed return that high. Most investments in the stock market average 10% over long periods. Your credit card debt is offering you more than double that. In reverse, paying it down is the best investment most Americans can make, and most Americans are making minimum payments instead, which is like having a 24% guaranteed return sitting on your kitchen table and choosing not to pick it up. Here is a number that will change how you think about that piece of plastic in your wallet. $5,000 carried on a credit card at 24.7% APR. If you make only the minimum payment, which is exactly what the bank wants you to do because the minimum payment is designed to maximize the bank's profit, not to help you, you will pay $8,617 in interest alone. The $5,000 purchase becomes a $13,617 purchase, and it takes 27 years to pay off. 27 years of monthly payments for something you bought and probably do not even own anymore. That is not a credit card. That is a second mortgage disguised as a small rectangle of plastic. Kill the most expensive debt first. Then take the payment you were making on that debt and aim it at the next most expensive one. Each debt that dies frees up cash flow, and that cash flow goes directly into widening the gap. Stage 3, automate the gap permanently. Once the bleeding stops and the most toxic debt is gone, take every dollar that was going to those debt payments and redirect it. Not to spending, not to a lifestyle upgrade, not to a reward for your hard work, to an automated investment, a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, a Roth IRA if you qualify. Something that grows while you sleep, compounds while you work, and does not require you to check it every day. Buffett has told ordinary investors the same thing for 30 years. Put your money into a low-cost index fund and do not look at it. He believes in it so deeply that he put it in his will. 90% of the money he is leaving to his wife goes into a Vanguard S&P 500 index fund, not into Berkshire Hathaway stock, not into a hedge fund, an index fund. If it is good enough for the estate of the greatest investor who ever lived, it is good enough for your extra $300 a month. One more stage. And this is the one no one talks about. Stage 4. The identity shift. When you have been in survival mode for 3 years, or 5 years, or 15 years, the struggle becomes part of who you are. It shapes the words you use about money. It shapes what you believe is realistic for someone like you. It builds invisible walls around what you allow yourself to imagine. Buffett talks about 2 scorecards: the outer scorecard, what other people see, the car, the neighborhood, the job title, and the inner scorecard, what you know to be true about yourself when the lights are off and no one is watching. Most people in the survival trap have an inner scorecard that reads, "I am someone who cannot get ahead." Not because they are lazy, not because they are stupid, because every piece of evidence in their daily life confirms it. The bills always win, the savings always lose, the cycle always continues. Escaping the survival trap requires rewriting that scorecard, not with affirmations, not with motivational posters, with evidence. The first time the automatic transfer moves $25 and you do not override it. That is evidence. The first time the buffer absorbs an unexpected expense and you do not go into debt. That is evidence. The first time you see a balance in your investment account that is higher than it was last month, that is evidence. James Clear wrote in Atomic Habits that every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Every automated transfer is a vote. Every debt payment is a vote. Every time you choose the gap over the impulse, you are casting a vote for a different identity. You do not need to become Buffett. You need to become someone who builds. That is the shift. And it starts before the money does. Buffett figured this out when he was 10 years old. He started tracking every penny he earned, delivering newspapers in Omaha, not because someone told him to, not because he was already rich and had a financial advisor. He was a kid with a paper route, but the act of tracking, of knowing exactly where each coin went, changed how he saw money. It stopped being something that appeared and disappeared. It became material. Something with weight and direction and potential. He started seeing each dollar as a seed instead of a consumable. That shift in perception happened before he had any real wealth at all. The shift came first. The money followed. Decades later, sitting in the same house he bought in 1958, worth over $100 billion, he still eats McDonald's for breakfast and drinks cherry Coke from a can. The identity was set early. The compounding did the rest. Stop waiting for next month to be different. It will not be different unless the system is different. Not your willpower, not your intentions. The system. Automate the gap. Protect the buffer. Kill the most expensive debt. Invest what gets freed up. Repeat. That is not a budget written on the back of a napkin that you follow for 2 weeks and abandon. That is an engine. Once it is running, it runs without you having to push it. It runs on the first of the month when you are exhausted. It runs on Friday night when your brain wants to spend. It runs in January, and it runs in August, and it runs whether you are motivated or not. Build the engine once. Let it compound forever. 78% of Americans are in the survival trap right now. You might be one of them. If you are, here is the hardest part of this entire video to hear. No one is coming. Not the government, not your employer, not the next raise, not the tax refund. The system was not designed to help you escape. It was designed to keep you circulating, earning, spending, earning, spending. The only thing that breaks the loop is the gap. Even a gap so small it feels embarrassing. Even a gap your friends would laugh at. The gap is the exit, and the exit is yours to build. The survival trap wants you to believe that there is no room, that every dollar is spoken for, that the only way out is a miracle or a windfall or a salary that doubles overnight. That is the lie the trap tells to keep you inside it. The way out is smaller than you think and harder than anyone admits. It is $25 moved before your brain can stop it. It is a buffer that absorbs the next emergency. It is a debt payment aimed at the most expensive balance first. It is an automatic investment that compounds while you figure out the rest. The survival trap is strong, but it has one weakness. It cannot survive the gap, build the gap, protect the gap, and the trap breaks open from the inside. If you stayed until the end of this video, write in the comments, "I am building the gap." There is another video on your screen right now, the next piece of understanding how money actually works. Thank you for being here, and we will see you in the next one.